Have you ever tried to drive in a really thick fog? You know the road's there, you know your destination, but you can't see more than a few feet ahead of you. Well, that's pretty much the problem a lot of companies face, especially in these hyper-competitive fields like biopharma. They're trying to grow, but the path forward is just obscured. Today, we're going to look at a blueprint for how one company managed to clear that fog and find its way.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start right inside that strategic fog to really get what the problem is. Then we'll check out the solution, this cool 360-degree assessment, and see how the insights from it were turned into real, concrete actions that ultimately created a massive competitive edge.
So, let's set the scene here. Imagine you're a major player in the biopharmaceutical world. You're already successful, but you want to hit the accelerator on your expansion in a very specific therapeutic area. The issue? The market is crowded and it's changing all the time. You're basically caught in a strategic fog.
And that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, making these huge investment decisions feels like a total gamble when you have such limited visibility. You don't really know what your competitors are developing, how they're planning to make it, or how they're going to bring it to market.
You see, this fog wasn't just some vague feeling of uncertainty. It was creating very real, very specific roadblocks. The company's understanding was completely fragmented. You had the R&D folks, the manufacturing teams, and the commercial people. They all had little pieces of the puzzle, but nobody had the whole picture.
And this created a huge disconnect. On one hand, the company was dealing with scattered information and massive blind spots around their competitors. But what they needed was a single, unified viewpoint. They were struggling to get everyone on the same page, when what they desperately needed was a data-backed plan to prioritize their investments and carve out a really strong competitive position.
So how in the world do you bridge that gap? Well, you don't just need a map, you need like a full satellite view with multiple layers of data. And this is where the solution comes in. A super comprehensive 360-degree assessment that's designed to give total clarity on the entire landscape.
The approach they took was incredibly systematic. First, it started with the science, mapping out the entire R&D landscape. Then, it moved to the practical side of things with manufacturing. Next up, it analyzed the go-to-market strategy by benchmarking commercial capabilities. And finally, it pulled everything together in a strategic synthesis to guide decisions. Let's dive into each one.
First up, R&D. Now, this wasn't just about listing out who the competitors were. No. This was about digging deep into their science. What clinical programs are they running? What kind of technology platforms are they building on? Who are they collaborating with? This creates this incredibly detailed map of the entire innovation ecosystem, showing you both threats and, more importantly, opportunities.
Okay, next, manufacturing. I mean, think about it. A breakthrough drug is completely useless if you can't actually produce it reliably and at scale. So this step analyzed the operational backbone of competitors, their factories, their supply chains, their costs, even their plans for expansion. It's all about understanding who can actually deliver on their scientific promise.
And the final piece of the intelligence puzzle was all about commercial power. How do competitors actually sell their stuff? This meant evaluating everything from their sales force and marketing tactics to their pricing strategies. The goal here was to find those white spaces, the untapped geographic markets or customer segments where our client could swoop in and win.
Okay, so they gathered an absolute mountain of intelligence. But here's the thing. Data is only useful if it leads to action. This is the critical pivot point, where all that analysis gets translated into clear, tangible outcomes for the business.
The first huge outcome was a much stronger R&D pipeline. With that clear view of the entire scientific landscape, they could finally stop guessing. It's the difference between knowing that a competitor is working on a new cell therapy and knowing exactly what specific platform they're using. This meant they could make really smart build, buy, or partner decisions, accelerating the right projects internally and knowing precisely where to look for innovation outside. Second, they could optimize their entire manufacturing strategy. Just imagine discovering that a key competitor was secretly building this massive capacity for a new type of biologic. That signals a major market shift years in advance. Armed with intelligence on capabilities, costs, and capacity risks across the industry, they gained this massive advantage in planning their own production to meet future demand, and without any costly surprises. Third, they could completely overhaul their commercial strategy. They now had this deep visibility into how competitors launched products and, crucially, where their geographic strengths and weaknesses were.
This allowed them to avoid those direct, expensive fights where they were weak and instead plan their own launches with surgical precision, targeting markets where competitors were vulnerable and they knew they could win.
And this is so important. It wasn't just about fighting competitors, it was also about finding the right partners. The assessment pinpointed the best possible companies for R&D collaborations, or manufacturing contracts, or even commercial deals. In an industry where the right partnership can make or break a product, this didn't just open up new avenues for growth, it de-risked them in a big way.
So when you put it all together, what does it all come down to? One thing: accelerating decision-making. When your leadership team has a single, holistic view that spans all the way from the science lab to the marketplace, they can make bigger, bolder decisions with so much more confidence and speed.
And that right there is the ultimate goal. All of these individual outcomes, a stronger pipeline, optimized operations, smarter marketing, they all combine to build something much, much bigger, a sustainable, long-term competitive advantage that's built on a foundation of pure strategic clarity.
In the end, it really all comes down to this. By clearing that fog, the company was able to shape a true long-term innovation strategy and build a much stronger competitive posture. It just proves that in a complex market, the greatest advantage isn't always a better product. Sometimes it's just a clearer view of the road ahead. So the question for you is, in your own field, what fog needs